Okay, we're recording for the SWWO OMI and for the North American Dogman Project. Eyewitness statement about the Dogman in southern Wisconsin. I'm talking here with a gentleman who's had several experiences with the Dogman. Do you want to go ahead and tell me about your first experience or your experience with your daughter?
Well, the first experience that I knew, looking back on it, I can say definitively was some sort of a cryptid. Had to do with being out with a group of volunteers late at night, doing some volunteer work, which revolved around social work, and we were on the Ice Age Trail near the Rock River. We were headed north, and we got to a point to where we could hear something moving in the trees. Now, the river was to our right. We're walking north, and there's, anybody who knows that area knows there's trees there. And we could hear something moving in the trees, but it was really weird. It moved exactly with our movements. When we would start walking, we would hear it. And when we would stop, it would stop. And it would be instantaneous along with our movements. Now, of course, this is in the middle of the night, too. The further we got down the trail, the more uneasy everybody in the group got about this, until finally we heard whatever it was jump out of the tree and grunt and shake a tree that was, in front of us. And the grunt felt very much like a warning not to go any farther. We all stopped where we were. We made a very quick decision to just get out of there, and that's what we did. And that was it. But I've never heard the noise that I heard this particular thing make.
How big do you think the tree was around?
It was a bigger tree. I can't say for sure. I never measured it. I can tell you that all of the trees down there that are in that area are bigger trees, and they're not something that like a person could grab and shake back and forth. Like, this thing was whipping it back and forth. It was clearly whipping it back and forth. And the other thing that gets me about it, though, is that I've been down there since then, and when you look up into the kind of the canopy of the trees, there's not a lot of strong supportive limbs for something to, heavy to be able to move on, let alone move quickly and in a direction. It was just very odd. The whole thing very odd. But everybody there saw it, heard it. We didn't get a clear visual of whatever it was we were dealing with, but we saw the tree whipping, and everybody saw the same thing and got out of there, and we just never talked about it again.
I know, I can understand. You also had some experience at the Janesville, the old dump.
Yeah, and no, there was... My youngest daughter and I like to go exploring. Of course, all my kids and I do. My youngest daughter really has an affection for it, though. She's always raring to go with that, especially back at this time, which was 2013. The short version of the story was that we didn't have much time to go exploring. Normally, we'll go out into the, country as far as we can go, and we'll pick someplace cool to go check out. Someplace maybe is a ghost town, or it's, whatever that haunted road is that's outside of Evansville. She loves Weary Road. She loves that kind of stuff. Well, on this particular day, we didn't have a ton of time, but we had enough to go someplace close. So we chose the old dump. She'd always been curious about that. We drive up Black Bridge, and she's always asking, what's down there? And so this day we chose to go there, and we went down there, and we just took some selfies on our way down, and looking back on it, the first thing we saw when we pulled up was a flyer for a missing golden retriever that was lost in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think much of it at the time, but after all the rest of the stuff that happened that I'm about to tell you, that looking back on it made me a little uneasy. So anyway, if you know that area, you know that you pull up to kind of like a chain link fence, and then there's a trail that leads off to the left, and then there's just this embankment, and you go down into kind of a bowl, and then over on the far, what would it be, the west end, there's a pond.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a wooded area all around there, but you're very close to people's backyards are very close over to the east. Parker Drive is visible from this area. Blackbridge Road is visible from this area. Anyway,
but it's kind of close to the Rock River too, right?
Isn't it? Yep, it is. It's close to the Rock River. I can't tell you exactly the proximity, but if from where we were, all you would have to do is go down the hill and you're at the old Parker Pen, and then go forward across and over County F, and it's right there.
Okay.
But a group of houses separates it too.
Right.
So anyway, we were just taking pictures. We took a couple selfies. One thing that was odd was that there was a guy walking out of the area we were walking into, and he had on a hat that was like a sun-blocking hat, sunglasses. I remember thinking that he was with the DNR. I believe there was a pickup truck that had state license plates in the parking lot up at the top where we were. Now, when this guy came out of there looking very alarmed, not running, but clearly moving out of there quickly. And I said hi to him, he said hi to me, but he was moving very quickly, and I didn't really think much of it then, but again, hindsight. So my daughter and I just continued to look around. Now at this time we're at the bottom of the embankment. We decided to go up the steep hill that was on the other side, and as soon as we got up to the top, there was a structure there that was clearly built, and it was built out of logs that were heavy logs that had clearly been moved and broken and stripped of bark. Now, at the time I was a social worker, and I have a lot of experience working with the homeless population. I also identifying areas where homeless activity happens. In other words, places that are rural or in the woods where people will build their own shelters. I'm very skilled in finding those places. This was not a human-made structure. At least not one I had ever seen. And the amount of effort it would have taken to have done it would have been really... It would have taken several people with all of their strength in order to get some of these logs moved and put into place as they were. And I took pictures of all of it, still have the pictures. And so that struck me as odd. And I took pictures of that. And
did you also hear wood knocks that day?
Yes, we did hear wood knocks that day. We did. And particularly when we were in two certain areas, and this was one of them. There was also one deer leg that we found up in a tree. One. Now, at this point, we started to head out, and we weren't even alarmed. It just, we're out exploring. I didn't think anything of any of this, really. The structure really got me thinking, what in the hell made this? But I also didn't think, well, this must be Bigfoot, or this must be, anything like that. And then we got to another spot where there were a couple more of those stripped logs, but they were maybe 50 yards off of the trail that we were on, back in a big wide open clearing. And I looked at them, and then I thought, okay, something's up with this. I don't know what it is, but this just doesn't seem right. And we also photographed all these areas that we went to as kind of our hobby. So I took pictures of that.
Were you into Dogman or Bigfoot stories then?
At that point, no, not really. My daughter had just started to hear about the Beast of Bray Road because she had a friend from school who had grown up in the Elkhorn area and had heard the story from his mother or something like that, and she was also from the Elkhorn area, and so my daughter had asked me about that. So, to answer your question, that had just entered our lives, the story of it had, but I was not into it. I wasn't a believer. I wasn't necessarily a non-believer, but I was not in any way, shape, or form in pursuit of something like this. We got home and started looking through the pictures, though, and the picture where there was the big clearing and the two stripped logs, there was obviously an animal looking back at me that I had not noticed when we were out there. And that, in and of itself, is odd. I had my daughter with me, and things were, feeling a little weird over there. I was attentive to my surroundings. I did not see this thing, though.
But that's the really good picture of the Dogman.
That's
sitting
where
in the
that
brush.
picture came from. It
Yeah.
was sitting in the brush, and then I saw it, and then I cropped the picture, cropped it again until finally, I was able to get a good, clear close-up of it. And, the first thing I did was I showed it to my wife. She said she didn't see anything in there. Next thing I did was I showed it to my dad, and his jaw hit the floor. He was like, "Oh my God, what do you?" And he told me, "Don't mess with this. Just don't mess with it, whatever it is."
Right.
I didn't feel right about that, and so the next thing I did was contact Linda Godfrey. She also said that there wasn't enough in this picture to definitively say if it was anything, and if it was something, what it would be.
And seeing that picture, everybody sees what you see.
To me, it's obvious, and I didn't feel okay about it. So then I continued to search into who I could, and your name came up next. So that's how I ended up.
I'm second after her.
I guess. I know members of Linda's family. I've known of her for a long time, so I just, I knew to go to her. But as soon as I started digging, you were the first name that I found as soon as I started digging. And so I contacted you. So after that, there was another time where I had another thing where this time I did see something. And I was driving on Highway 14, Business 14, going into Janesville. And this is over where Wedge's Bar is, and where the golf course is, and Oak Hill Cemetery is there.
Okay.
And an animal ran across the road, and it stopped traffic. It ran, and it was a large animal. I didn't catch the entire thing, and it was on all fours. And it was a reddish brown, and I remember, I don't think it had a tail, but after it was gone, everybody just kind of sat there. Traffic didn't resume immediately again. It was like everybody had to kind of recollect. And I remember thinking about, okay, what the hell did I just see? I didn't see a face. I didn't even see the front portion of it. I saw the hind portion of it. That was when my mind finally registered, because I was behind a car that saw it before I did and whatever. But it was huge and moving quickly. And also, it just was not anything I've ever seen. It was clearly not a bear, not a deer, not anything like that. And it left me with such an uncomfortable feeling that, I still kind of feel a little uncomfortable when I think about it. Just because, I don't know, it must have been more traumatic than I realized. I don't know, maybe I saw more of it than I remember, something like that. I don't know. I feel uneasy about it.
And it stopped traffic, so
yeah,
people could let it pass.
Yes.
And did you say before that it was lumbering oddly?
Yeah. Yeah,
as it ran?
it was a lumbering sort of a movement, kind of like, I mean, it wasn't like where you know when you see a dog run, you know, your front paws go and then the back paws go, and it wasn't like that. It was more kind of off to the side, almost.
Like it didn't belong on four legs.
I guess that would be a way to describe it. Yeah.
Like it was more used to running on two, maybe.
But it was on four.
Okay.
It was on four, but it was a lumbering, clumsy sort of a movement. It wasn't graceful. It was fast, but
Did you notice the back legs?
yes.
Were they shaped like a dog or
You know,
a man or a
Vic
bear?
Kundiff asked me the same question. I do remember them being shaped like a dog's leg. Okay.
Okay.
But that's not the feature that sticks out the most to me. The feature that sticks out most to me is like the ass end of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is because it was clearly, like, you could see the musculature of this thing. And as it moved, it was very clearly a powerful animal. And it wasn't, you know, there wasn't I don't know, a resemblance to anything I'd ever seen before. That was what really caught my attention, more so than the shape of the leg. I remember the leg being a dog-shaped leg. Now, having said that, that's not the part that sticks out the most to me.
Okay. And then, about how high do you think the back end of it was?
I mean,
Do you have an idea?
I was behind an S10.
Okay.
And now, the S10 was on the road. The animal had then started to already make its way into the woods on the other side, which involved kind of going upwards a little bit. But the animal was higher than the S10.
Oh, gosh. Was it headed towards the cemetery or
Yes.
towards... Okay, so it was headed towards Oak Hill.
Yes.
Right, okay. And did you say before that it kind of... You should have been able to see it take off up into the cemetery, but... It kind of just more like disappeared? Because you thought you'd be able to watch it run up into the cemetery?
Well...
Do you remember it?
See, you know, the thing about this is that it was starting to get dark. It was late winter at the time, so, like... I guess, yeah, I should have been able to because, like, there were no leaves on the trees, but it's thick there, you know, thick with woods there.
Right.
So I guess I don't know. I've never really. I didn't get the feeling that it cloaked or vanished or disappeared or anything like that.
Okay.
But it disappeared in the sense to where I couldn't see it anymore. But I don't know. I mean, that's explainable by it going into the brush of the woods or whatever.
Okay.
But at the same time, once it was out of sight, everybody just sat there. That's one thing that strikes me too, is that everybody who was there and witnessed that was in shock for a second.
Yeah.
Clearly, because traffic sat for 5-10 seconds, something like that, longer than, you know, if there's ducklings crossing the street, everybody stops. As soon as that last duckling is almost out of the way, you're starting to inch forward again, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Not in this case. Everybody just sat.
In surprise, probably.
The
Rock River's near there, isn't it?
The Rock River is near there, and the proximity of this puts it in like, if you were to swim across the Rock River and get to the other side, the old dump where I saw where I took the pictures that ended up, you know, that ended up being the good ones, is right there.
Right.
Very, very
So
close,
it's close.
Anyways. Yes,
Yeah.
the proximity is close if you were to swim across the river. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously.
Give me 1 second. I got to see. I thought I heard something.
Oh, that's okay.